guys, it's Miss Madera. We're moving on in our lessons doing dividing decimals by whole numbers. Make sure you have this set of notes in front of you so you're copying and following along with me. Dividing decimals is similar to dividing whole numbers. Now, let me be specific. It's as similar as when dividing whole numbers if the decimal is in the dividend. And you're going to circle the word dividend. What I mean by that is if the number in the house, like if I were to divide 6.8 divided by 2, the number with the decimals in the house, it is the dividend. It's the number you start with. That is what we are talking about right now. When you divide a decimal by a whole number, you place the decimal in the quotient. That's the answer to a division problem. And it would just float right up. So my earlier example, 6.8, my decimal just float right up, straight up. Almost like magnets matter in an earlier lesson I taught you, but I don't want to get into that. And I don't want to confuse you, so just think when dividing decimals by whole numbers, just float that decimal point right up. Then you divide as you normally would. So let's go through the steps again, just a gentle reminder, because in 5th grade you learned how to divide multi-digit numbers, but we need a little bit of a refresher. So to divide two numbers, you have to divide, then multiply, subtract, and this one you check to be sure. And then you bring down the next number. Add a note to this. If there is a decimal point, you might need to annex a 0. So you might be thinking, wait, there's no more numbers for me to drag down, Miss Madera. Well, wait a minute, because any number after a decimal point, there's an infinite number of zeros that you can annex and add on to it. So let's try one together. What is 4.56 divided by 2? So I'm going to set up my problem. Divided by 2. My dividend, the number I start with, has a decimal point. I do not want to forget about that. My divisor, the number doing all the work, is just 2. So let's see how this works. How many times does 2 go into 4? I need to divide that. Well, it goes in 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. My next step is subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. I bring it on down to bring it on back. Divide. How many times does 2 go into 5? Goes in 2 times. 2 times 2 is again 4. Subtract. This gives me 1. Bring it on down to bring it on back. How many times does 2 go into 16? That's 8. And that goes evenly. 16 minus 16 is 0. I gotta squeeze it in. So there's my answer. I still have one last step. I need to double check, make sure all my math was correct, and I need to float that decimal up. So there is my final answer. 4.56 divided by 2 will result in 2.28. That is my quotient or answer. So when I ask what is the quotient, you'll be like, oh, I know that, Miss Madera, that's the answer. All right, let's try one more before I have you working with a partner. What is 23.1 divided by 14? I'm going to set up my problem. My dividend has the decimal, that's the number in the house. My divisor on the outside does not. So I'm going to think, how many times does 14 go into 2? It doesn't, so I'm going to put a 0. Subtract. Bring it on down to bring it on back. 14 goes into 23 one time. Subtract. Oh, I gotta borrow. 13 minus 4 is 9. 1 minus 1 is 0. Bring it on down to bring it on back. How many times does 14 go into 91? Well, it actually goes in 6 times. 14 times 6 is 84. Subtract. Oh, gotta borrow again. 11 minus 4 is 7. 8 minus 8 is 0. I can't drag anything down, Miss Madera. Actually, you can, because there's a decimal point There's so many, there's an infinite number of zeros moving on and on. So I'm gonna annex a 0 and drag that guy down. And now I have 70. 14 goes into 70 5 times perfectly. 70, let's go squeeze it in. I'm almost done. I have to float up my decimal point. And there is my answer. All right, guys, if you have any questions or you're unsure of anything, rewind this video, go back, pause if you need to. Your notes should match mine exactly. So make sure over your notes you have all your pieces filled in. I'm gonna leave it on this. You can now start working with a partner on your group work on the back.